What up, guys? We're gonna be starting something new, and it's gonna be towards more of like a review for indie comics. And I say it's kind of a review because I think it's gonna be more like review critique, like review what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and then give some suggestions as to maybe how that could have been improved. So it's more like a critique than less like a review, I guess. They're kind of one and the same thing. But yeah, I'm just gonna jump into it. What I was reviewing was I recently got a Kickstarter reward from Taurus Comics for Saw the Lightning Wielder. So these are the books here. Awesome cover work done there. And I read through both of these books actually twice before I wanted to make this review, just so I can get a real good feeling for what I wanted to say about a review or have any suggestions or whatever the case may be. So for me, how this is going to work is I'm just going to go through what I thought worked, what I thought didn't work as much, and then give some suggestions as to how to maybe change those things. And I'm going to do both of the books, so they're going to be separately. First issue first, obviously. Excuse me. Let me take a sip. um, so just to start this thing off, I think the main character looks cool. And I think she's kind of like that franchise character, if that makes any sense, like the one, like a banner character, like can kind of hold the imagery itself, can kind of like pull people into the franchise, to the company, interesting to look at kind of thing. And then she can kind of hold up her own story by just her fan base. So cool looking character. I like Lord Eclipse as well. I think in the second issue it's cool, like you see is kind of like true form, so I think that's a cool thing. Cool character design there. All of his henchmen look pretty cool. His beasts and different kinds of characters look cool. And yeah, so overall I think the character work is pretty good. I think the cultural angle is really cool for me too. You get the Hmong culture, which is not like a very I'd say known cultural group in the United States. So I think it's cool we get a little bit of that taste of the culture. And then I love the cover work. And then the cover work was really good. And overall, both books were well put together. But I'll talk about that more later. But yeah, they look really good as a complete work. So those things are what really worked for me. And I'm sorry, and I think it started off really strong. So the first couple, like the first scene, the opening scene, I think it did kind of start off really strong for me. And I thought that was great. To move into what didn't work for me, on that note, was that I think it did kind of, the story kind of petered at some point. Like it started off strong, and then it kind of felt like towards the end, and maybe that's just a personal opinion, but that's just kind of how I felt moving through it, from the first part to the second. And then in terms of the art, I thought the page flow at some points was a little not weird, but it just something about it wasn't exactly working for me. And I think it's like the page flow and then the art direction behind making some of these things more noticeable, like the city, the environment that she's in, the environment that Lord Eclipse is in, because you get a little feel of it and stuff, and you get it in the backgrounds and stuff like that. But I guess I just wanted a little more information in that way, artistically. So that's just me personally. Again, that's my artistic, opinion on that. I just kind of wanted some more visual information and a little more dynamic, like fight scenes and different kind of angles and things like that. So that's something that for me, I wish there was a little improvement there, or I see a little room for improvement, I should say, there. And then in terms of the writing, I found it a little hard for me as a viewer to like relate to any one of the characters in the first issue, because there wasn't a lot of like information being downloaded about any one character. So you have a little bit of character development with the main character. You see that she talks about her father's passed away, her mom's working a lot, and she works a hard job. She works at a farm, and she's kind of the load bearer in terms of the household, responsibilities and money and all that kind of stuff. So, or at least helping out in a major way. And she goes to school and she's, working. So you get this kind of sense she's, a very relatable situation for sure, but just not a lot of dialogue or character development in that way. There wasn't like a narration, like a self-narration. So we didn't get a lot of her voice, I think, in the first issue. So that was kind of hard for me to like, on a personal level, to feel like really attached to the character. And that it was pushed here, and I guess I wanted it to be pushed a little farther, but I'm not saying that the writing really suffered from it. I'm just saying for me it was just a little hard to kind of get into that character's like mind. And then I kind of wanted that from the villain as well, because it looks like the way that this plays is that he's a pretty big bad guy, so I guess I just wanted a little more backstory from him as well. But you do get like, kind of his motivations and stuff like that, but his motivation is very generalized and it's not really like relatable to a certain extent. So that's kind of that's all I really was meaning behind that. More relatability, I guess. So my suggestions, I had actually a couple suggestions for this book because I thought it was really interesting. Like I said, started off strong and I was like, oh, cool. Like if I were to have any suggestions, it would be to keep this part the way it is and then kind of, maybe just take a different direction. So there's a little bit of, in the beginning, what I thought was, or what would have helped with maybe some character development as well, was defining who she is as a hero. So maybe giving, instead of the way the intro starts where it's like it drops kind of into the cityscape and she's kind of you're dropped into the middle of like a fight scene. Maybe before that, like the first thing kind of should have been like maybe some narration, and then you have like kind of like newspaper headlines, news headlines, little cell phone headlines of news reports like on Facebook, kind of keep it more modern with the times, and they read, kind of like explaining who this hero is and kind of how her like kind of rise into that being a known hero in this city, because she said she's been doing this for a year, and it's like, okay, you don't really get any of that background information except in that fight. You see that they kind of know one another. You see that the first enemy that she has, they kind of know one another, whatever the case may be. So you kind of draw that, like, okay, she's been around doing this. But I guess I just wanted to see a little more of it, like, the heroic acts that led up to like where she is now. And then, especially if we're not going to give like a really and I don't know if that's the direction maybe that they're going to come back to it at some point, but that would kind of be a cool twist as the series progresses, if that's the case. But if not, if we're just kind of taking it from where it is and not gonna go back to it, then I think seeing that kind of stuff would have helped. And then let's see. Oh yeah. So, and then on that note as well, I kind of had an alternate ending that I thought might have been a little better for the pacing of and development of the characters. So I think that I would have preferred to like not even have that diner scene and just kind of have like a fight between like the shaman Danny and Saw. Like he catches her like outside somewhere, and then they kind of have like this secluded fight scene battle, and I think that would have been cool, because then we would have had a little more action to kind of keep us in the game, and then we would have had, which is what happens in the diner. But I think the diner, it just loses me there. There's not a lot of kind of relatability in the moment. There's not enough dialogue from the main character to like really make that an important scene, I think. So I think it could easily be changed or replaced or made and just take a different direction, and I think it would have worked a little better for me, because I think there should have been a little more information given about Zob history. Like they had a flashback in when she wakes up in class. She has like a flashback to wake up in class. I think if you would have carried that over, and like she's fighting Danny, he says, you don't deserve this kind of power, like I want it for myself, essentially, to like stop this dude that's coming. And then he's kind of given it his all, and you can see the kind of power difference between the two. And then, as she's exerting herself, she has another flashback, and then that's kind of like how the book would end right there. And with the flashback, you get kind of the motivation of Eclipse as well, kind of in that little flashback, or you get like how big of a bad guy he is, and then maybe well, that, and then you close the book with Eclipse kind of ending it the way that he wanted to end it, or sending more baddies into the realm of to get people's energy and stuff like that. So but yeah, I think the it would have worked really nicely for me that way. And then that's pretty much my take on the first book. I want to see these characters more developed. So that's kind of my writing peeve in that moment. But again, overall, really good product. I know the kind of work it takes to get this kind of stuff done, and everything flowed together really well. Oh, there was one little suggestion about the lettering. It would be cool if, like, from the last panel, when you're carrying over into like a square panel, like an information panel, as opposed to the dialogue panel, if that could be a different color. And even on the news, when the news was playing, if that could be a different color as well, just to kind of like separate the eye, because that was not confusing, but it was just like, if there would have been a color there, it would have just helped immensely. Sorry, my nose is getting real itchy. Allergies. So that's my opinion on number one, and then I want to move on to number two real quick, because I don't want this video to be super long. It's already going longer than I thought it would. So moving on into number two, I think it actually, what worked for me was majority of this book worked. I don't have really many suggestions for the changing, or have any changes that I would have made to the second book. I think overall, actually, it was a step up from issue one in all areas, because you get the information download of her origin. It feels like there's a lot more. The art direction kind of like took on a more concrete kind of feeling. The coloring was really good. So there was a lot of stuff that was working for me in issue two, as opposed to like issue one. And I get that, when you start working with somebody as a professional, it's hard to like immediately connect with something that they, the way that they write, or the way that their vision is for the comic. But as you continue to work with them, or you work more on their comic or their work with them, you get a greater feeling for what this is about, or what you can add to the interpretation. So I understand how that works, and that's a good thing. It has improved since issue one. You want that to happen. You want an improvement. You don't want a decline. So moving in the right direction there. So that was kind of the first thing that really jumped out to me. Another great thing is you get Hmong culture in this book via language and explanation. It doesn't dive too deep. So that was something that I was like, okay, I think that's meant for the reader to kind of like not get bogged down. I think me as a reader, I actually wanted a little more. So that was kind of like, I guess as an adult reader, like I like history, I like learning about new cultures, so that was just something I was like, oh, I kind of want more, but I can just go to the internet for that, right? That's not the purpose of this comic. So again, that was just another personal thing, and then you get an explanation of the Zob itself, like what is Zob, or sorry, Saw. I have to keep repeating that. You get an idea of what that is, like what the mantle is, what that means, and how Danny views the situation. You get his like aspect of it. So there's a little development there between the two characters and stuff like that. So that was good, and we get another really great cover. Actually, like I said, I think in every way, I think number two was kind of a step up from number one. So that to me again was really right off the bat, really just kind of stuck with me. So a couple things that just didn't work so well for me. With that being said, everything was just done a lot better. A couple things that didn't work for me, or didn't feel like kind of improved from the last issue. I really kind of want to see a little more dynamism in the panels and the actions. They're for some reason I just get this kind of like blocky fist fight kind of thing, and I guess me as a reader, she can fly and she has lightning, and that's something I forgot to mention about the first issue and just the character in general. And it's kind of one of the it's kind of a funny thing, and I don't know if this was just an artistic choice by any decision maker, but her, in the name it's the lightning wielder, but you don't really see her wielding lightning too much. So I think that was to keep it more in the realm of like magic, as opposed to just straight up like an elemental kind of force. But I guess, that's what I expected, and I didn't get it as much. So maybe we could have some more lightning effects. Maybe we could have some more of her using those lightning powers in different ways. And like I said, like she can fly, so I expect her to be kind of coming at the enemy from a lot of different angles, trying different things, kind of just more of a dynamic fight in general. Throwing uppercuts and and then seeing the actions themselves, and a block or a parry or something like that, or things like that. So just a little more chopping up the action and not grouping it so the reader has to fill in the blanks so much. Like really control the fight scenes, control what's going on, like kind of how a movie would, where it's chopping up the scenes, but you're still getting what actions are really taking place step by step by step by step throughout the fight. And I think for me, this was like a fist fight. It was just kind of like a punch, bam, punch. So it was just kind of like very simplistic in that way. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I just would love to see David take on some more like dynamic fight scenes. So that's something that, and I know I've known David for a long time. And I really really love him as a cover artist, and I think that's one thing that could just probably help with his fight scenes, just a little more dynamic kind of poses, angles, things like that. And then I think I just wanted a little more villain development in the second issue. You don't really see him too much. You don't really like get any more relatability from him. Not too much dialogue or anything like that. So, and I get it because there was the kind of the information download of the Hmong kind of cultural history and the Saw history itself. So that's why I thought maybe some of that should have been tackled in the first issue. So that way, the second issue was just kind of more spread out. She could have learned more, about. I'm sorry, again, really, nose is really itchy. She could have learned more about, or they could have, driven harder into the topics that were discussed in issue 1 and not like completely discussed. But I think like, again, I would have preferred it spaced out a little more as opposed to it being, right here in that one issue, because it kind of made it feel like the first issue. It kind of made it, kind of made number 2 feel like the issue 1, because I was getting to know the character. So, or the storyline, I was getting to know the kind of meat and potatoes of the character's origin and things like that. So that's kind of what I thought was cool. And then if we would have had, or thought could be changed, let me just put it that way, but it would have been cool to have some more villain development as opposed to like having just all character development, and then there's this like break, because they're talking and time is passing, but there's not really a change. It's kind of like a pause in the fight scene, come back later, and it's kind of the same thing, So I would have again liked to see some kind of like differences there, some more momentum of what the villain was actually doing once he gets into the world, and like see those scenes of him doing things to normal people, more of those, because there was like a scene, I think at the end of the first issue, where he like grabbed a couple cops and like drained their energy, and I was like, oh, that's dope. Like the way that was paneled was really cool, and I wanted to kind of see more of that in the second issue, and see those like really cool demon looking characters kind of like be causing havoc, jumping off buildings, and that would have been really cool. So again, just a little more dynamism in like the way that the actions are moving forward would have been really great, and a little more development of the villain characters, and not just Eclipse, but his dude Clay, or Kale. I'm not sure exactly the pronunciation of that. They didn't really clarify. But yeah, overall, again, for both of these books, overall really greatly put together, really wonderfully put together. They delivered on their Kickstarter pretty quickly, in my opinion. I've waited longer for less, so let's just put it that way. And yeah, the whole process, the Kickstarter was very organized. Their marketing was on point in terms of like getting it in front of me all the time. So that was really cool. The tier that I purchased was like, it wasn't super expensive, you know, but I got a lot for what I paid for, so that's really cool. And I really appreciate that. And just altogether, good experience reading these books. Like I said, there was a couple things that I would have improved just from my perspective in issue 1, and things that I would love to see moving forward, in terms of like an art critique. So that's pretty much it. That's what worked for me as for both. And then moving forward, I just think maybe it's moving a little too quickly with a lot of different actions, and I kind of want to see again more development of the characters within it, so that way I can kind of become more attached to them, and then it will become way more natural for me to want to read the next issue, just because I want to experience more of this character, as opposed to just like going from one piece of dialogue into an action and then piece of dialogue into an action. It kind of like starts a pattern, but you kind of want you want to throw off that pattern a little bit first of all, every once in a while, because there does need to be a kind of pattern to how you space out your books each issue and stuff like that. So I get that. But yeah, I feel like it's moving a little too quickly in terms of, you know, the bulk of this like the gravity of this event, the characters themselves. So I want more weight to the characters, more weight to the situation, and draw it out, you know, longer. I don't know again what the end result or the end goal of this series is, like how long it's going to be. So that might play a part as well. But yeah, overall, really great. All right, guys. So that was my first review. I hope you guys like it. Definitely go on and support these guys. They're doing amazing work. They have, I think they just finished up another Kickstarter after this one that I had purchased. So they have 3 series out, I believe. And what I'm talking about is Taurus Comics. Obviously, I'll tag them. And, you know, so I'll let you guys know exactly where to find them below. But yeah, go support them. They're awesome. They have a book out called Shaman's Destiny. They have the Saw series. See, I keep doing it. Saw series. That's 2 books in right now. I'm not sure how many books Shaman's Destiny has, but I think I've seen a couple covers already, so maybe we're a few in there. And then they have another book called Ruby from the Planet Oz. All of these have been successfully funded on Kickstarter. So first of all, congratulations. That's awesome. And I just wish you so much. I'm glad to see you guys have been successful, and I just wish you guys all the best moving forward and more success. And yeah, I definitely support you guys as an indie company. I have my little thing over here. Sorry. Next to my Goku egg. Got some cool stuff like this going on. So yeah, guys, go support these guys. Go support their fund their Kickstarters, support their Kickstarters, because they're really doing amazing work. Yeah, I've known David Jaxon, the artist that's working on this project, for a long time. So I love seeing that he's, you know, putting out publishing work, or, you know, everybody's getting their work shown, their hard work shown. Like I said, I understand how hard it is to create something like this. Us as a company, we've been trying to do it for quite a while, and, you know, we've been stalled at so many different points. So I understand how great of a thing it is for this to come together and just feel so organized. So kudos, guys. Everybody definitely go and visit Taurus Comics, support their work, and we'll see you in the next review, guys.